Some of you may not be having the background related to the emergence of Buddhism and how this Buddhist Sangha came into existence. So I would briefly first give a little bit of the background and history to this. As you can see, some of the pointers, the Bhikkhuni Sangha was established with the efforts of Mahaprajapati Gautami. I will be discussing about her in greater details later. Buddhism itself emerged in the 6th or the 5th century BCE. There are different dates again. One tradition believes the date for the Buddha around 560 to 480 BCE. And another tradition believes it to be between 460 to 380 BCE. This religion itself emerged as a response to the earlier established religions and the religiosity and ritualism into the religions. So it was as a response that Buddhism emerged. Now, when Buddhism emerged, it was Prince Siddhartha, Bodhisattva, who renounced the worldly samsara. He strived hard to attain enlightenment, and that is why he is called as Buddha. And once he was Buddha, once he was enlightened, he started his teaching career, which continued for almost 45 years, mainly in the northern India. In this whole journey of the emergence and development of Buddhism, we initially have the establishment of the Bhikkhu Sangha. The disciples, as the Buddhism is growing, it is spreading to different regions. More and more disciples are coming to Buddha. They are accepting the teachings of the Buddha, and so the Sangha is growing. And that is how the monks' institution, the Bhikkhu Sangha, gets established. I may use the term Bhikkhu or Bhikshu alternatively, similarly Bhikkhuni or Bhikshuni alternatively, because it will depend whether I'm referring to Pali or Sanskrit. So Bhikkhu Sangha gets established into Buddhism, and then Bhikkhuni Sangha is yet to be established. Now that is where the first hurdle or the first struggle that women had to face. As I mentioned about the efforts of Mahaprajapati Gautami, who was the foster mother of Prince Siddhartha, with her efforts, this Bhikshuni Sangha comes into existence. Now, a few pointers that I would first like to clarify, and then we will go to the actual discussion of Theri Gathas. There are different rules, the disciplines and rules and some kind of regulations prescribed for the Bhikshu Sangha as well as Bhikshuni Sangha, and we find that in the Vinaya Pitaka, which is the rule book for the Buddhist Sangha. Currently, I am focusing on the Theravada tradition because that is the topic I have selected for today, the Theri Gathas. I won't be taking currently into discussion the Mahayana or the Vajrayana traditions of Buddhism. In this Vinaya Pitak, we have 227 rules defined, prescribed for the Bhikshu Sangha, and whereas we have 311 rules defined for the Bhikshuni Sangha or Bhikkhuni Sangha. And there are 8 chief rules which are specially for the Bhikshunis. They are not prescribed for the Bhikshus. If we get time, we can discuss a little more about these. For those who do not have much idea about this literature that is available, as I said, it is Theravada tradition I am focusing on, and the literature is in Pali. This Pali canonical literature includes primarily 3 baskets, Tipitaka, Sutta Pitak, Vinaya Pitak, and Abhidhamma Pitak. Abhidhamma Pitak, last one, is focusing more on the philosophical discourses, doctrines, and discussions. Vinaya Pitak, as I mentioned, is discussing about various rules and regulations and the discipline that the Bhikshu Sangha and Bhikshuni Sangha need to maintain. Sutta Pitak, the first one, is more of a style of a dialogue between the Buddha and others. So sometime when Buddha is discussing the matters with bhikshus, or when he is discussing with upasaka, upasika, laymen, laywomen, those dialogues are included into they are collected under the Sutta Pitaka. Now within this Sutta Pitaka, we have again sub-categorization. I'm not going into all of them, but the last one, Khuddaka Nikaya, as you can see the name, that is the portion. This portion is considered slightly later to the other Nikayas, and could also have some of the, it could be like a supplementary to the other Nikayas. And this Khuddaka Nikaya includes Udana, Itivuttaka, Jataka stories, which many of you may be aware of. And this is the section which also includes Theragatha, Therigatha, and the Apadana literature. Now, these three are more related to the talk for today. So they are part of this Sutta Pitaka Khuddaka Nikaya. Theragatha, we are not focusing today because Theragathas include the poems, the expressions of the bhikkhus, whereas Therigatha is the main topic for today's talk. Apadana, if we get time, I will touch upon the Apadana section as well. What are these Therigathas? So the Therigathas are the poems by the Buddhist bhikkhunis, the nuns, which are around 73 gathas collected over here. In the academic sphere, the scholars believed that this Therigathas could belong to 5th century BCE to 3rd century BCE. Now, in whole, the Tipitaka itself, the Sutta Pitaka and Vinaya Pitaka, which I showed you, that was given a proper format, a structured, organized format after the Mahaparinirvana of the Buddha. So after the Mahaparinirvana, there was the first Sangiti, first council of the bhikshus, which was convened, and there Sutta and Vinaya were discussed, and they were given the final format for the Theravada tradition. Now, therefore, there could be, as per the scholars, there could be some of the texts or some of the sections which could be included at a later date, but this tradition has believed all of this as part of their Tipitaka, as part of their canon. So Therigathas could be ancient versions of these expressions, these poems by the bhikkhunis. There are also Theri Apadanas, because we are focusing on women currently. I'm talking only of these. Theri Apadana are also lyrical stories by the bhikkhunis, which are, again, it is a collection of around 40 Apadanas. This could date probably between 2nd or 1st century BCE. So slightly later than the Therigathas, that is what scholars believe. When we are looking at these Therigathas, Gatha itself means a song or a poem. And Theri word means the senior nun, the senior bhikkhuni who has attained the state of arhathood. Arhathood is becoming an arhat is the highest goal that any bhikshu or bhikshuni can strive for in the Theravada tradition. So Therigathas are the expressions of these Buddhist bhikshunis. I'm looking at these Therigathas from 3 perspectives. First of all, because they are gathas, they are poems, they naturally have the poetic value, the aesthetic beauty into them. They are, more importantly, the expressions of women. What do women feel? What were their experiences in the earlier life? And when they are joining the Bhikshuni Sangha, what are their feelings? What are their expressions? how are they looking at these two different worlds, the conventional reality and on the other hand, the spiritual path that they have adopted, and they are trying to gain the ultimate reality. So these expressions are found into Therigathas, and also the philosophical, soteriological expressions or the values or concepts that they in between express through their poems. The poems are not very philosophical in nature because they are finally the expressions. But they do touch upon, they do have references to some of the important basic doctrines of Buddhism. So in between, I will show you some of the examples where all these three dimensions are touched upon. In this whole journey of theories, we have to understand that the theories, they were primarily from the society, which is patriarchal. And in that patriarchal society, before Buddhism, there was already Jainism. Jainism was also the religion that emerged in ancient India as a response to the increasing ritualism in the religions. Jainism was also having their sangha, their community for the ladies, for the women. But we are currently focusing on Buddhist sangha. We do not have so much of poems and expressions by the Jaina nuns. I'm using the word nun just for the convenience of me and for the audience. They are generally called sadhvis. Every time the terms may not match exactly with the original understanding, but I'm using it for the sake of convenience. So Jaina nuns they were also having this community even prior, mostly prior to Buddhism. But the literature, the type of literature that is available in the Buddhist tradition, that is really remarkable, and therefore I chose Therigatha. Now, as I was mentioning, these women were from the patriarchal society, and there were not many opportunities, not many ways in which they can strive on, they can take up their own spiritual path. They were, of course, part of the earlier larger religious dimension. The larger religious atmosphere was of the Vedic religion. Women were also part of it, but this Sangha provided them, the Buddhist or the Jaina Sanghas provided them their separate identity on this spiritual path. So from this background, we have to understand what these ladies, what these women must have felt when they were given this opportunity and when they are attaining the highest goals through their meditation, through their own spiritual development. There is a commentary on these Therigathas named as Paramatha Deepani by Dhammapala, and he also calls the expressions of these women as Udana. So if you remember, there was word Udana when I showed the earlier slides. Udana is a type of collection which is considered to be the spontaneous expressions. They are your inner expressions that you try to express to the world. So Dhammapala, the commentator over Therigatha, also understands, or he looks at these Therigathas, these poems, as the inner expression of these women. So some of the examples of these theories. Now, the first one I have put over here is Mahaprajapati Gautami. As I already mentioned, she was the foster mother of Bodhisattva Siddhartha. When Prince Siddhartha was born, his father was Shuddhodhana, who was the chief of the Shakya clan, and the mother's name was Queen Mahamaya. But she unfortunately passed away within 7 days after the birth of the baby. And then it was the Mahaprajapati Gautami, who was the sister of the queen, who became the foster mother of the baby, and she she nourished the baby like her own son. So Mahaprajapati has a very respectful and a very important place in the Buddhist tradition. Now I have tried to select few translated versions of the Theri Gathas, because original Theris are in Pali, and some of the Gathas are quite long. I have selected only those here which are important for us to discuss or to have a look at. So this is not the whole song. This is just a selection. Now, the first one is Mahaprajapati Gautami here, because she is the first woman to get ordained in the Buddhist tradition, as she is the foster mother of the Buddha or Bodhisattva Siddhartha. She had made this request to the Buddha earlier as well, 2 times, that she wants the woman to also have access to this spiritual path. But Buddha had denied it. So this happens after King Shuddhodhana passes away. Mahaprajapati Gautami is now completely determined that she wants to take up this spiritual path. And for the 2 times when Buddha has rejected this request, 3rd time when she again is requesting to the Buddha, she actually cuts off her hair. She wears the robes like other bhikshus were wearing, and she walks with many other royal women following her, who also wanted to have access to this spiritual path. She walks to the place where Buddha was, and she requests again. The Buddha is still not willing to accept this, to establish this Bhikkhuni Sangha. And we are told that his disciple, Ananda, who was also his cousin in the when he was Prince Siddharth. So this Ananda is very sympathetic towards Mahaprajapati Gautami and the other woman, and he mediates between them. He asks various questions to Buddha. He tries to convince him, and he also asks him whether you feel that women do not have the capacity to attain the highest goal, whether they cannot become an arhat, whether they lack their wisdom. And Buddha says, no, not at all. That is not the reason. There is no lacuna. There is no it is not that women cannot achieve it. It is not that women are not wise to attain arhathood, but still he is not much willing to accept this. Finally, with the efforts of Ananda again, Buddha accepts and he allows Mahaprajapati to be ordained. Now that is how the Bhikshuni Sangha gets established. At this moment, Mahaprajapati Gautami is asked to accept 8 chief rules. I'm not going into the details of that because these are some of the points which need greater discussion. It won't be possible to touch upon them just in a minute or 2. But there are special 8 rules given to the Bhikshunis, which Mahaprajapati accepts. And then she is ordained as the first Buddha Bhikshuni, the Buddhist nun. After that, the other women who were following her, who were along with her, they were ordained into the Sangha by the Bhikshus, because Bhikshu Sangha was already established. The ordained senior Bhikshus, they ordained these Bhikshunis, and that is how the first Bhikshuni Sangha came into existence. After this, when other women started entering into the Bhikshuni Sangha, they are generally ordained by Bhikshus as well as Bhikshunis. Both the Sanghas come together and ordain the Bhikshunis into the Sangha. So we have these 3 categories: Mahaprajapati herself, directly accepting 8 rules and establishing the Sangha. Other women who were following her were ordained by the Bhikshus. And later on, Bhikshus and Bhikshunis together ordained the Bhikshunis into the Sangha. That is how the tradition has been preserved. That is how it developed. Now, as you can see in this particular Theri Gatha of Mahaprajapati Gautami, we are told that this is what she expressed when she realized she had already attained the arhathood. That was the ultimate, she had realized the ultimate reality. And now it was the time for her passing away. She realized it, that her time is nearing. And at that time, she is expressing what has she attained by following this spiritual path. Whatever has been taught by the Buddha, she has practiced it. She has dedicated herself to this spiritual path. And in the past, as she says, in the past, I was a mother, a child, a father, a brother, a grandmother, maybe in previous lives, blind to the truth. I returned again and again. So it is the cycle of birth and rebirth, never finding in the darkness what I sought. Now I have seen the Bhagwan. Indeed, this is my last body. So as per the Buddhist philosophy, once you attain arhathood, once you have realized the ultimate reality, now there is no rebirth. You are free from the cycle of births and rebirths. So that is what she is expressing, because now she has realized she may pass away within few days. And that is the expression we are told that that is there in this Theri Gatha. One remarkable thing about the tradition, whatever I explained just now about how the Bhikshuni Sangha was established, all that has been documented, that has been recorded, that has been preserved into the canonical literature. So it is based on the canonical literature itself that we understand what exactly happened in the history and how it all developed. This I'm not going into much details currently, because this is about the Appadana. If we get time, I will discuss this. But here I have put again a few expressions by Mahaprajapati Gautami from Appadana. And below you can see the expressions by Yashodhara, wife of Bodhisattva Siddhartha, who also became a Bhikshuni later on. She also entered into the Bhikshuni Sangha. And what are their expressions? I have just I had put over here. Let us look at, okay, this is the slide I have purposely kept here because I also want you to understand what type of expressions are there in the Theragatha, the expressions by the bhikshus. So if you can see on the slide some of the translations over here, the bhikshus are also expressing about their progress on the spiritual path. They are also looking at, they are using beautiful similes, beautiful metaphors, and they are trying to express what type of bliss, what type of peace and calm they are experiencing. But when we go to the Theri Gathas, that is why I had put this slide over here. When we go to the Theri Gathas, we find Theris expressing their inner voices. Whatever they have experienced as a woman, whatever was the suffering that they went through in the samsara, that also has, that actually creates the background for their expressions. So they are trying to relate to their conventional reality, the samsara that they were in, and this spiritual progress and this calmness, this peace that they are experiencing now. That is what they try to connect with each other, and that is what is expressed in the Theri Gathas. That is why at some places they are very poetic, they are very beautifully using the metaphors and similes to express their feelings. So these are a few examples of that. Like you can see here, Purna Theri and Dhamma Theri, their expressions I have selected currently. And Purna is saying, grow full of good qualities like the moon on the 15th day, full of wisdom, destroy this mass of darkness. So the full moon day, the full moon is the one who is destroying this darkness of ignorance. And this is how metaphorically Purna is trying to express her own spiritual development where she has realized what is the reality of the world. The ignorance has been discarded, and now there is only the peaceful light, like the light of the moon. Then Dhamma theory is explaining, as I was going for alms, leaning on a stick, all my limbs trembled, and there I fell on the ground. There I fell on the ground as I saw the danger in the body. In that moment, my mind was liberated. Now, these expressions, these small poems also give us the we are able to relate with those moments where these theories are realizing the truth of the life. So these are very, very small, very minute moments, like the one expressed here, that she fell, her limbs are trembling and she fell on the ground and she realized the impermanence, how this body itself is not permanent. And that moment, that realization liberated her mind. So sometimes in few lines, the theories are able to express exactly those moments of realization. Again, these Patachara especially is very, very well known in the tradition, the theory, because Patachara faced a great loss of her whole family. She lost her children, she lost her husband, she lost her maternal family. And after that, the stories, the literature tells us that she was completely crazy. She was not able to handle the emotions. She was just wandering here and there, not even aware of her clothes, not aware of her disheveled hair, and she was wandering everywhere. And finally, when she met Buddha, she entered into the Sangha, and then she found the peace and calm in her mind. She realized this impermanence. Now, when she is expressing over here the thoughts, the feelings, she is again using a metaphor. Young men plow the field, sowing seeds in the earth. As they nourish wife and children, young men prosper. So this is what happens in the conventional reality. I have perfect morality. I follow the teachings of the teacher. So why have I not attained nirvana? She is still progressing on the path, and she is trying to compare, like we have beautiful crops coming out from the seeds that we sow. I am trying to sow the seeds of peace and calmness within. When is she going to attain the nirvana? When is she going to realize this truth? And then suddenly she is also telling us a moment, which is a very simple day-to-day life moment, but how that makes her realize this reality. How that makes her, allows her to internalize herself. That is what Patachara is explaining. Dantika, on the other hand, is talking about a man took a pole with a hook and said to him, hand me your food. The elephant held out his foot and the man mounted him. Now she has taken this metaphor of a man who is mounting on the elephant, and similar way, Dantika probably is trying to mount over her mind, trying to control the mind which is wandering everywhere. And then she finally attains the realization. There are also some very important expressions like questioning whether womanhood has anything to do with this spiritual progress. And like you can see here on about the expression of Soma theory, whatever can be attained by the seers, that stage so hard to reach cannot be attained by a woman with her wisdom as small as 2 fingers. This is what people believe. That is what Soma is expressing. And she is asking the question, how does being a woman have anything to do with a well-collected mind? When knowledge is present and one sees rightly into Dhamma. So if you have that capacity, if you are on the right path, then whether you are a male or a female is not going to make any difference. That is what Soma is also questioning and answering at the same time. We have another such examples, not in Therigatha, but in the Chula Vedalla Sutta, where Bhikkhuni Dhammadinna was asked questions about ultimate reality by a layman Vishakha, and she gives detailed answers to him. Later on, Vishakha meets the Buddha, and he repeats whatever Dhammadinna has explained. And he asks Buddha whether this is the correct explanation. And Buddha is praising Dhammadinna that whatever she has explained is exactly how I would have explained it. And he praises her for the great discernment. So these type of incidences also we come across in the Therigathas. Here you find Subha, the Theri Subha, who is expressing her steadfastness. As I mentioned to you, Therigathas at many places have expressions of women. What women experience is quite different from what a man will experience. And here we have Subha, who was obstructed by a male person, and she is trying to respond to him through her expressions. What is she saying? She is trying to explain the anityata, the impermanence of this physical body, of this physical beauty, which may be attractive for others, but Subha has realized that this is all impermanent. And that is why she was able to realize the truth. And at the end, as you can see on the screen, she pulled out that charming eye. And with a mind of non-attachment, she said, well then, take your eye. And she gave it to that man. This very aptly expresses how she has understood this truth, that the beauty of the outer physical body is not important, but the inner mind is more important. So that is Subha here. I'm going a little fast. I think, is there a time?
Yeah, we're actually at time. We need to leave a little bit of time for questions, Baghyashree. So we're at time.
So shall I conclude? Can you give me 2 minutes?
If you, what 1 minute, please? Yeah, if that's okay, that'd be great. Okay. Thank you so much.
So
thank you.
We can discuss later on about other examples, but while we are looking at these expressions by these theories, they are actually the representative samples telling us that the expressions of women are not stereotypes. They are able to carve out their unique space in the patriarchal society. This is the struggle that they had to undergo for establishing the Sangha, and later their struggle on the path of spiritual development. And this is also a type of representative sample to allow us to understand the society in those days. What were the roles of the women? What was their status? And what did they experience? So because Dr. Juhi had mentioned about feminism, even if we are looking at these Therigathas from a feminist perspective, I think understanding the tradition and understanding that social context is also very important when we are looking at anything from a feminist perspective. So that is what I had to share. So thank you very much. These are some of the important references that I read for this talk. Thank you.